One Saturday and Sunday each.
Yeah. Actually came down our road, they saw our smoke and John actually come down my driveway and said, "I've got a couple trucks come." I said, "We didn't call them, yeah, we're fine." I think they just saw the smoke, you know.
No, just, yeah.
Yeah, we're fine. I was just there by the house, a little bit of the rest was finishing up.
They had them across I-70.
And
Another
then
one. That's a big problem.
Okay, welcome to the April 3rd Board of County Commissions meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and let's start with the pledge of allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, let's get started. April 3rd, can't believe it's April already. Do we have any public comment? No, seeing none, we'll go to commission comments. Commissioner McKinley.
Let's see, I had a couple of calls about appraisals again this weekend. It's a regular happening. Other than that, I just worked on the house and I tried to get all of April work done in the first weekend. I didn't like this. But then Sunday evening, we grilled out hamburgers and made potato salad. We sat out on the patio.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice way to start the week.
Yeah, that's right.
Enjoying the weather, the wind, the wind died down. It was nice. It was really nice. That's all I got.
Okay, commission report.
Thursday, I met with Robin Cole, Executive Director of Pawnee Mental Health, to discuss some things from this last Tuesday's board meeting. Some of the challenges the agency is currently facing, discuss facilities and infrastructure, both in terms of the county and Pawnee itself. As you know, we own the building over there, and person talks about what direction to move. Had a really good dialogue. It was good to catch up on the questions and concerns I had. I tried to really multitask last Tuesday, trying to work and listen to the meeting at the same time. And it didn't work well this particular time now. So anyway, I wanted to catch up and make sure I was up to date on everything. And there's a couple of things being discussed that just caught bits and pieces of, and just wanted to make sure all was good. Friday morning, I met with Jason Smith, President and CEO of the Chamber, to discuss a few items, including the fairgrounds discussion, Aggieville, some thoughts on some area economic development, military affairs, and working on getting some a list of potential community sponsorship junior commissioners program. I'm gonna reach out to the community and see what resources we can get, what people we can get on board, and see how that goes. I'll keep everybody updated. Busy morning for the both of us, so I appreciated you taking time to chat on those items. Also Friday, I attended the ribbon cutting ceremony over across the way for the new Sunflower Children's Collective. There's a handful of different agencies, including CASA, that's combined there at that location. I was really curious because when you look at it up front, it doesn't look very big. It's huge. Just right across the way.
So it's across the street on Points.
Yeah, on the south
On the
end
south
over
side.
here. Yeah. Did a really good job redecorating all that. And they have plenty of space. They have plenty of space for that location. You know, served their interest in community interest for a very long time, and it was a very well attended event too. See, overall, I was going to mention too, I thought that Thursday night went very well in Riley. Their meeting, appreciated everybody who was in attendance, including those from the city. Really liked the mayor's update. They're really working on I think a well-positioned vision forward type of plan for some of the things they're trying to do for the city. And got all kinds of cool neat stuff. Like I said, I need to go up there and make a day of it when I get a chance to. And I put that on my radar too. So, and over the weekend, I finished some things up at home, including the update for my electronic and entertainment systems. Got all that done, completed. That turned out to be more of a project than I thought it was going to be. I did a few other things at home, and as mentioned, it was a good weekend to get all those things accomplished. I don't know if I got everything in April accomplished in this weekend, but closer than how I started, so we'll go with that. And in true traditional fashion, the Royals are starting out 0 for April, so not giving us any potential hope for decent baseball season. But hey, we're gonna get a downtown stadium, so it's all good. That's all I got.
Okay, well, let's see, Thursday, we were at Riley, at the city hall, which was a really a good location. I had never been in there, and that's really a nice facility. And I want to thank everybody from our staff and department heads that came up and did presentations. We did have an update from Clancy on Senate Bill 323, which was really interesting. It's a new one that's come up. And Brian Pete was there. We had a firefighter report. And then we did have some public comments on some property up north, which our director or appraisal person in charge, Anna Bursa was there. I'm sorry. It was Monday morning. Was there, and she answered a lot of questions, so that's good. Friday, I've too been trying to catch up on work. Of course, I have a whole summer from last year to catch up on in the yard, so it's quite a daunting job. I did buy one of those gorilla carts. Have you ever seen one of those? Oh, that's great. It's front wheel drive. It's got a dump on it. You can haul stuff around it. It's great. So, I was hauling around dirt, all sorts of things this weekend, trying to get the garden in order and beds and all that. Anyway, Friday evening, went to Good Friday services. I'm getting ready to enter the Hollywood this week. And then went to church yesterday and then continued to work outside. I actually missed dinner because I was outside working Sunday. But anyway, that's about it for today. So let's go ahead with the business meeting.
First item we have commissioners is agreement with Schultz Construction Inc. in the amount of $799,000 to construct the North County EMS station.
You make the motion on that one.
All right. Yeah. Like a contract, I'll move to approve the contract with Schultz Construction for the North County EMS station.
I'll check that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the contract for Schultz Construction. I did have one question. When does it, are they ready to start? It said it started at the date of the contract.
The start notice to proceed, which should be coming up probably soon after this is signed today.
Okay.
I don't know when their availability is. I thought there was pretty soon though.
Okay, yeah, that's the way it read. It was going to start. Didn't want to have a.
Yeah, that's what I was, it's my question too. That was, we have a start date for them yet.
Not yet.
But everything's ready to go. Just like starting.
With this, we should be on our end, we're ready to go. I think now it's just when they can commit enough people to start the project.
Okay.
And then Anderson Knight issues the notice to proceed.
Okay. Okay.
Where are we at on materials and stuff? Are we good to go? Are we gonna be waiting on anything?
I don't know. I mean, that's Schultz's.
Well, if we keep advised on the start date and all that.
Yes.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the contract with Schultz Construction. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sure, please.
Oh, good.
Most material timelines are getting a lot better. Like windows used to be 11 to 13 weeks. Now they're down to 3 to 4 weeks. So a lot of stuff.
Well, I would start expecting steel and wood to probably be a struggle with the recent storms.
That always happens.
Oh, I said steel's been, wood got better, but steel.
Would have gotten a lot better.
Well, I'd like to do a groundbreaking ceremony when that happens, so that we can do some PR on it. Let people know it started.
Would you let Anderson and I know that, John?
We were just talking about that.
Any events, or anything going on in Leonardville here towards the mid to late spring? No. If I could coincide with that.
Fall.
Nothing. I can remember.
We don't have a meeting until.
That's at the end of June. Probably over 2 days.
Next, commissioners have, need a motion to approve the bid filled by Ergon Asphalt and Emulsions Inc. of Solomon, Kansas, supply CHFRS 2B asphalt seal oil for a low bid of $2.89 per gallon.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bid for asphalt. All in favor?
Chair, please.
Pretty good at those
There.
motions, Rich.
Been working on it.
You've had a few years, huh?
It's pretty.
I noticed that too. Threw
Usually
me
that's
off,
personnel.
threw me off being green. I thought the same thing.
The personnel is now yellow, so they must be trying to use up the rest of the green.
I guess so.
I guess white paper is low on supply or something. I don't know. Next we have proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention Month, 2023 proclamation for April. Need a motion, please.
We'll make a motion to approve the proclamation for Child Abuse Month awareness for April.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the proclamation of Child Abuse Awareness Month. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three sign, please.
These are just me.
No, that's all. They're on the back.
Oh. All right.
Next, commissioner need a motion to approve National County Government Month proclamation for April 2023.
We'll make a motion to approve the National County Government Month proclamation for April 2023.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the National County Government Month proclamation, April 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three sign, please.
That's all of them, one side.
It is, that's how they usually are.
That just means the other one's long, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a whereas. It.
yeah.
We'll find reading it later.
And next, commissioners have Raleigh County Personnel Action Form for Christian Bruner, new hire traffic control tech in the Public Works Department. All three sign, please. You commissioners have any changes for the minutes?
Leave that a couple.
Okay. Get it pulled up here.
Under one. Yeah.
No, that's the computer's
Still
thinking
waiting
about
for
it.
Still thinking about it.
Still thinking about it. Okay, number one, public comments.
The second paragraph, it's got a double, it says, sees no cattle activity is not taking place, and take the not out of it.
Gotcha.
And we're down to number 7.
Gotcha.
A couple places you can talk about Keating introducing.
Oh, it's T.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got it twice there.
T's, how do you?
Tiede. I wrote it down here so I can.
It was a unique spelling, that's what. Good, any other, any?
I didn't have anything, no. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes as amended from the March 30th, 2023 meeting of the Loudoun County Commission.
I'll second.
Has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from March 30th, 2023 as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The tentative agendas of the commissioners?
David, you got a second?
You betcha. Any items for next week's press conference, commissioners?
No.
Okay, next you have Mr. Holman at 9:00. By the way, good morning, Mr. Holman. I don't think I said good morning.
Good morning. I showed up a little late.
You know.
And all the activities. They're in discussion or what, but I don't think of.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, you gonna get chase turkeys this year?
I don't think so. I assume you're going to.
Planning to, I haven't gotten very well prepared like I should.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I felt this year with a lot of stuff in the spring. Certainly related to hunting.
I drive by them every day and they're out there like crazy, so.
You know, that's when they come out.
Need to go try and have a little fun with them.
Yeah, come out to taunt everyone.
What time's the game tonight, John?
Probably 8 o'clock. I don't know. I'm not gonna walk this.
It's a. It's totally. Yeah.
The women won the NIT.
Saw that. Good for them.
I think we had a good chance had we gotten past that last game, but up should have.
I thought so too. And Harris, and we can explore to this. Guess everybody heard the news about Sean Snyder.
Yeah, I heard that. I think that's good for him.
I think so too. I actually do.
He's heck of a special teams coach.
Well, I
And he
think,
knows football. I mean, football program.
Yeah.
I don't know that he could or couldn't be a head coach. I wouldn't say either way, but I know he knows football program.
he's also a special assistant, so
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I think good for them. I mean, like everyone else, don't be close to your families.
Well, plus you're kind of coming in on the front end of something again, and
And people just
No.
do not understand, if you don't understand that business, how tough it is to get a job and the job that you want. So good for them.
yeah, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
I'll
though.
be happy for them as long as they don't beat us.
Yeah, there you go. Like it or not, moving forward, I mean, we gotta hope KU does good in football. I mean, we need it for the Big 12 moving forward. So we need it for the state. Well, I mean, I don't want them to beat us, but they can.
I'm okay if KU's number 2 in the nation, as long as we're number 1.
Got it. I can win 8-9 games a year, and, you know, it's fine with me.
Wow. Sorry, guys, I just, to K-State, can't go for KU.
No, I don't go for KU, for sure.
But when they succeed or we succeed, usually the state succeeds, and that's the important thing. My gosh, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Go back to your
Duh.
office. Go back to your office.
I think I've been doing this for too long now. I need to retire.
We're getting too many sports people. Yeah, like, wow.
Me too.
Where is, what's his name? I'm just blank today. Our running back, where's he going?
When's the draft?
First dude.
When's the draft?
End of the month, 27, 28, 29. It's in Kansas City this year.
I didn't know when that was.
I mean,
I've gotten kind of projected as maybe a late third, fifth round.
he fits really good into Kansas City.
Yeah,
That's
he does.
exactly the type of player, whether it's a receiver, running back, the oddball that does the unique stuff is kind of what Reed thrives on.
Mhm.
The guy that you can use him either or, and they don't really know how you're gonna use him, and
Yeah, Mahomes would be a good team.
he's quick enough, change direction, and yeah.
Well, he can run, he can block, he can catch. I don't know if you could use him on special teams. That might be a stretch. I don't know. I mean, he just never really did it in
Sproles
college.
did
so-
good. Sproles did good at special teams.
Right.
In the pros.
Yeah, oh yeah. He's third or fourth all time in all purpose yards.
No, I think he fits good, and I don't know many other offense. John, you know better than me, similar to Kansas City that used the player like that, but
I can think of a couple. The Saints would be one. They may change ship a little bit with Derek Carr, who's more of your pocket drop back passer.
I just think he fits really good with Kansas City.
Seattle would be one that would be interesting. Baltimore would be another one that uses running backs much in the same fashion. Don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. That's the key there. There's a few teams he fits. Style will fit. Looks like Nduke and Julius Brents are somewhere in that second round.
Are they?
Yeah. As you heard, the suits transferring,
Yeah, I have heard that.
and it really surprised me.
Mhm. I mean, I really like Masood. I really kind of hate to see him go, but what I really like is what Tank's doing. He wants guys that can play both ends,
Mhm.
you know, and you need to. If you're gonna be a player, you're gonna be able to play both ends.
He's not much of a defender and at
I do
the, at
think
the
he got
three,
better at defending, but still
Yeah.
not great.
but we've got with Manning and Colbert coming on, we're pretty good on the wings.
That Colbert's big, isn't he? He's a
Mhm.
big guy.
Yeah. And then we got the Ames kid coming in. He's the ESPN top 60.
Looks like he's
We
after,
got two players coming in from the ESPN top 60.
he's after 2 more guards, I think, isn't he? I
Yep.
think older guards, because we
Yep.
got 3 freshman guards coming in.
I'm hearing, we're looking at this kid from Kentucky that's transferring.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Kind of
Fits.
fits.
Be able to remember your mascot easily, so.
Yep, yep. I know there was a bunch of rumors the other on Saturday, but it was April Fool's Day, so I don't know how much to take that into account.
Yeah, I just don't keep track of that stuff.
Well, they have 3 available scholarships, so,
Oh, okay, I thought they had 2, 3.
well, with Masood leaving, they have to. I think they're pretty much, for guard, they can pretty much do whatever they want. Get another freshman, get a transfer, whatever. Very good thing.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We're ready for Clancy Holman.
Morning, Commissioners. Clancy Holman, Riley County Councilor. Begin with the project list. Just want to direct your attention to page 3 of that topic first. Distinguished entries. As usual, everything in bold is either relevant background material for something recent or recent activity. As it indicates, been some work on a pending district court appeal during the last reporting period. Assisted by just sitting in on a witness prep session by outside counsel with a county staff member at the staff member's request, and all went very well as expected. It's always it's interesting to work with somebody who's going into their first deposition. They did really well, as I knew they would. And it's mainly, it's kind of it's a good idea to have those preparatory sessions. It helps counsel know where helps the person be at ease when they go in there, because it's a very artificial way of communicating. Anybody who's sat in on a deposition and had their deposition conducted would tell you that, I think. But it went well. Then also had some additional information on pending litigation. Had communication from insurance from the outside counsel on a different matter, and discussed with the deputy counselor last week's city county meeting on animal control. Next item would be on, one update on is on page 5. And here we've got regarding the legal services provision, we'll be discussing at some point after we're done. We're discussing with the board at some point here pretty quickly. Staff's recommendation about possible range of compensation for the board to consider offering for that service later on this year. Should be within, I would think we would probably have that discussion within the next couple of weeks for the board. Also talked about, let's see, talked that matter over also with Craig as well, to get his feedback. We had an initial staff meeting on this, kind of flesh out what would make sense for that service on a budgetary level. Then on page 6, we've got just some indications of the preparation that was done for the intergovernmental luncheon, and also for noted in comments, participated in the intergovernmental luncheon with the statutory updates, and did work with. We had a couple different meetings, 2 or 3, with our public information officer and county appraiser on possible press release regarding Senate concurrent resolution 1610, which thankfully did not go anywhere. Doesn't mean it couldn't come back in some form, but it won't come back. I don't think it can. Well, I don't think it would make sense to do so this session, at least in the form of this on the Senate side. I can't imagine if they couldn't get, I'm not trying to jinx anybody, but if they couldn't get the required number of votes to move it forward, I doubt that it will be tried again, but who knows? All things are possible, so keep watching. And then there's a notation there about an upcoming deadline, which you'll be signing off on an opt-in document or documents for the latest round of national opioid class action litigation settlements. I talked about that a couple of weeks back. And those are the ones I primarily wanted to highlight for you. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about a specific legislative matter, unless you have questions about this. And you covered or that you saw in the update. As always, if you see something in there after the meeting or before the meeting, when it's out there on the as part of your packets, then don't hesitate to call. I want to talk a little bit about House substitute for Senate Bill 42. Nice title. We need to get more paper. If I brought those with me, I should not say if I did. And this involves LABTR.
No, not good.
Oh,
No, it's not good.
I was being
Eliminate it.
sarcastic.
Yeah.
Take a look at the highlighted in yellow. Some of the relevant sections, the most relevant section of House Substitute for Senate Bill number 42 is on the second page. And all that stricken material, that's the existing statute on LABTR. Just to clarify, I mean, they're right now, what's going to go into conference committee ends LABTR, ends the statutory scheme that in the past has been out there available. And it's been part of the arguments of, well, why not just fund this? Well, this is one way to deal with that.
I wondered why they hadn't done that.
Yeah, and I think they finally got around to it. They, of course, do make some references in that follow-up section, section 184. There's an amendment to that one. This is the, it talks about revenue sharing and says there aren't going to be transfers in accordance with this. They've added fiscal year 2025. So there won't be any transfers along those lines described in that county and city revenue sharing fund. There isn't going to be any money put into that according to this statutory enactment, not just for 2022, 2023, and 2024, but also 2025. I did send word to our contract lobbyists and said, okay, this looks to me sure like it. My LABTR is gone. So where is, can ask for their input on where does this head? Does this mean that there's some kind of trade going on or what? Who knows? But it looks like the end. At least the ability to have a statute out there that enables counties and cities to say, why not just fund it? They're getting rid of it entirely by this, assuming that goes through. So, want to let you know that. Once I hear back from them or confirmation, what I will probably do, have some further conversations with them about seeing if there's anything that, any input that needs to be given by email. Because knowing what the board's position historically has been on it, I'll be telling them that we don't think this is a good idea. And tell them why. But most of them, I think all the work at this point is going to be committee work. It'll just come back to the floor for passage later on in the session with whatever they've come up with. That's why I'm always reluctant to say, well, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen right now. But we'll just have to see.
My question is, did the original Senate bill contain that? Because if it does, even if it passes the House, it'll still have to go to conference committee.
Yeah, well, they're talking like that's where this is going.
Okay.
I didn't look into what the mechanics of it were, but that's what I understand.
If they're dismissing the statute in the Senate bill and this bill, then all it has to do is pass the House. But if the House is including this in there and the Senate didn't, it'll have to go to conference committee.
That was the premise I had that I received from some quarter was that that's where this is headed.
No, it might have to go to rules committee first because it's a statute and then go to conference committee. And somewhere that process.
Yeah. Unless they change the rule. So.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that looks pretty certain is that for now it's gone. That's what's going to happen. You just need to be aware of that. And doesn't mean it changes any of the arguments in favor of it, or that they couldn't decide to bring it back, or that it comes back in some altered form. So out of conference. So, that's all I have, unless you have questions on anything.
Any word on the other ones? 248 and 252.
I didn't look over the weekend,
Okay.
so I couldn't tell you. I figured the dust is gonna have to settle this week somewhat. Or we'll see some kind of alerts come out on things, which you generally get this time of the session. I would, and that's a great opportunity for me to say, I've always, knowing what the board's position is on things, and when there has to be a response before I get back to a public meeting with you, I'm going to continue to take those positions that you had previously. Or what I believe, if we've got something new and does not seem like a good idea, I'm gonna feel free to go ahead and email things out, because I don't have time to come back and get a letter And I've never been sure how much good those letters do anyway, depending on what committee it goes to.
I think on this one, if they're eliminating the statute, they really, by virtue of eliminated the conversation.
But
I
certainly,
mean,
they've taken out a giant portion of the
Mhm.
conversation, which has always been, hey, the statutory ability to do this is there, just fund it.
mhm.
And I think they're tired of hearing that. That would be my interpretation. So,
They're tired of local government whining about it, this
whining about it,
Senator
yes.
Masterson would say.
Yes, that's true. I wasn't gonna say why.
Quote unquote, it is on record, yeah.
Right,
So we can.
yeah, but according to him, he's a doozy.
Mhm.
He's also the one that kibosh the treasurer's speed bill.
Yeah,
Well, are our lobbyists gonna really work on this or not?
There's only so much they can do. I mean, it's primarily, if there's not support for something, they have no means, I know it seems basic, but they have no means of manufacturing it. And what they're primarily, they're great. I mean, for what they do, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a great service. But they would say, I think, that's why I asked them, what does this mean? Is this just done? Or is this coming back? Or is it part of what I didn't say it this way to them, but I said, tell me, is this, am I reading this right? Is this finished or where is this on this particular bill? Because a lot of times they will know.
I kind of figured that was the case last year. When you have a surplus the state does and. Yeah, I mean, if you were going to at least make an attempt to do something, you would have did that last year with in good faith and that was just not even part of the conversation. I kind of knew.
It was a little strange. I didn't get some traction. Now I've depressed everyone. I'm good.
Thanks, Commissioners, you have Craig Fox at 9:20.
Thank you.
Yes, when you're talking about depositions, my wife was teaching. Sometimes divorces drug the teacher in for positions.
Imagine that.
She said it was not a pleasant experience. So
Yeah.
it was really bad, then when you get the transcript, you know, when it's every word for and you think, God, that sounds like a, you know.
Now, the person that's being deposed, you were sure that they knew what they do, right? That they know their job.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Hobson,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
what do you do for the county?
Mr. Bass, well, that was in open court, so that was worse. Yeah, he would, and he tells that story on himself, so.
He does.
I asked him what he did and he had no idea. He just froze. You know, what are your job duties? What are your job duties?
But she said, of course, like I say, it's basically being a teacher, when you see what you've written out, what you've said,
Yeah.
it comes that.
Yeah.
Not, you know, it isn't the same.
No, attorneys usually find that too in their questions because, and that's a trial too, in the direct examination and see. Every other sentence you're saying, okay, or whatever the response is, please.
Yeah.
That all gets written.
Well,
Good portion of it.
yeah, she said that. She didn't like it. I mean, you know, if two parents were over custody or something, they drag a teacher, they try to push one side or the other, so she always tried to be. Her couple of, she definitely had opinions, but she tried this.
It's not really pleasant. That person did survive though, because I saw him coming back. He lived.
Well, it's good to know that the Royals are setting records already out of the gate.
My daughter and son-in-law went yesterday, and basically they lost 7-4.
Mhm.
So what's their record?
0-3.
Oh,
They scored 4 runs entire
in
weekend.
the whole series? Is that the opening day series?
Mhm.
Yeah. They're playing Chicago, what,
Minnesota.
Minnesota, that's what it is. Was the big article in the I think it was the Saturday, and it was lifted from the Kansas City paper. Yeah, the owner of BOCC out of downtown.
Yeah.
Stadium, I told my wife, I think you need to win games to get people in the stands. I don't think what the stand is.
Or at least be competitive. 95, 100 losses a year just isn't gonna cut it.
Yeah. And it was an article, they said, they opted not to go the free agent route, trying to develop the young players for the summer, but I think it was this.
Yeah.
Pitch of the penny.
They have no pitching. I mean, they haven't been able to develop any of that pitching.
Pitching is just so tough.
The Royals have missed on just about all of that.
What's that?
In the last 10, 15 years, the Royals have missed on just about all the pitching.
Yeah.
Singer looks like he might figure it out.
Real brief span, about what was it, 14, 15, when they had,
Well, they had Ventura.
but, yeah, I mean.
Everybody else, they went out and
Yeah, I
got.
say everybody else they went out, yeah. Yes. We went to spring training days, saw one game in Surprise and got to watch a Ricky pitch.
Yeah.
And at least down there, he pitched 3 scoreless innings. He did really good. But that's spring training.
Yeah.
That's spring training.
It's so weird to hear his name.
Huh?
It's so weird to hear him out there. Grinky.
He's been pitching for 20 years.
Yeah, he's on the
You
downside.
just can't, he can't be the guy.
The stadium down there is kind of more compact, almost kind of like Toyton Family Stadium.
Yeah.
And I never knew Ricky was a grunter. Every pitch, at least maybe late in life, every pitch he pitched would have had a grunt to it, And my daughter, my wife asked, why did I say, well, he's pitching real hard, sometimes it's a psych thing too, to psych out the batter.
And his arm probably feels like it's gonna fall off.
Well, he's pitching well. I mean, he even pitched pretty well last year. He just didn't get any run support, but
But he's just, the future for him is very good. It's very good.
I mean, maybe long relief or something like that. I mean, there's still probably a place, but number 1 starter, he's not going to eat up 200 innings. I mean, that's just that's not even fair to do at this point in time.
I'm kind of reading this old baseball book, and I can't think what pitcher it was, but it was like for one season, he had 28 complete games, and I'm thinking, God, nobody thinks about complete games.
Cy Young,
No, this wasn't Cy Young.
Walter Johnson was another one of them too.
Yeah, but
He was born in Kansas, by the
I
way.
was thinking maybe it was Bob Gibson.
28 complete
Well, I
games?
mean, it was double, I mean, there was a couple of pitches, I'm confused, but he was double digits, I think, at the beginning for the season.
Okay. Yeah, I am. That season in 69 there, he had, at one time, he had a 1.12
And I think that.
ERA like late September.
Was in 69, his stats were just crazy off the chart.
And he still lost the Cy Young Award that year to Denny McClain, who won 30 games.
That's the season.
That's
they were
the season,
compared
says
to,
Bob
yeah,
Gibson you're
yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. I reckon him being a pretty good batter though, too. Pretty good hitter.
Okay. Sound great.
Here we start talking baseball, I can lose track.
Oh, I,
Good morning, commissioners.
Golden era. but-
Craig Cox, a deputy county counselor. The item I have before you this morning is a tax sale item. The tax statutes require us to appoint what's called a guardian ad litem. That attorney is an attorney who represents potentially minors who might have an interest in property through the death of a parent. And also for adults that may be under legal disability. If they're old enough, we're actually looking at one now that may have a guardian conservator, and so that's a legal disability. So this attorney is to just pick up those taxpayers and protect their interests in the tax sale. And then the additional job we give this attorney is we appoint them as the military attorney, and they represent those military individuals that are in active service right now. And you know, they may be stationed somewhere out of Riley County, and so and really can't make contact with us. And so the attorney is to represent those military individuals in that circumstance. So we call the attorney the guardian ad litem military attorney position. And again, they work with these individuals. Most of the work is more with local taxpayers, or not just local taxpayers, but taxpayers we're having a hard time getting a hold of, making contact with. Their work plus our work in trying to contact these individuals, and basically by the tax sale, I think we contact almost everybody, guarantees that we've done every reasonable effort to notify potential taxpayers for the tax auction that the property is going to be sold. And that effort's really important because it's a standard within the tax statutes that we're supposed to make reasonable effort to contact these people before we can sell their property at tax. And so with the work that we do and this attorney does, you know, we can sign off on an affidavit saying we made every reasonable effort to contact these individuals, and that makes our tax auction then a valid tax. The fiscal impact here is the same monetary numbers that we had last year. There's no change in that, and so I would just ask the commission, unless you have any questions, to approve that contract. And Summer Dirks was our attorney last year, and she did a real good job. She's already working for us, so she's doing a good job with us now too.
does the 5 hours usually cover the cost
Right.
every year?
Yeah. And we always budget more, and we're anticipating we may have to pay her more this year because we have some difficult situations. So we start out with this amount, but we have $1,000 budgeted this year for attorney's fees in case we need it.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and move to approve the contract for attorney fees as submitted.
No, second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the attorney fees as submitted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three sign, please.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
We have press conference at 9:30.
Yeah.
No.
That's pretty all elections.
And in the fire and roll
Oh,
fire.
fire, everybody.
Temporary fire elections. It's like 200 pounds.
Turn on the other.
Yeah.
I knew it was in that film, sorry.
Anything planted yet, Greg?
Yep.
I just got mine tilled yesterday.
Onions, potatoes and peas.
Yeah, I need to get
I got some more. Got another bit. It's just
onions, peas. And then
I haven't done potatoes in a long.
Potatoes, are they little plants or they spread?
It's spread out.
they're a big bush. I mean, they don't like grow like a vine, they
Yeah.
bush up.
I haven't in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't done it for a long time.
Decided to give it a try.
Last time
A small patch this year, just see how it goes.
Last time I did it, I determined for that, my work potatoes are all the cheapest.
That's back then.
But you cannot beat the new tomato potatoes off the little ones, I like the. potatoes
yeah.
pretty soft.
They make great soup. Make good soup.
Oh, it was good. They were good. All right now. No, I've never done it.
They do.
I love.
You get about this much or so, it goes out. My grandparents used to
I love
plant some of
potatoes.
that. Nothing else, just to use them for the holidays.
Wife and I eat them for regular, so I love them so much.
My son says, potatoes are cheap.
That's what I
He
did.
doesn't, well, he doesn't eat like
I love looking at them, though, they're really pretty plant, you know, they are cool plant, they're super easy to grow. Morning, Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good weekend?
Well, I had a little tussle with the trailer, the ramps on it and stuff, so it looks a lot worse than it is, but in case you're curious. I've had better weekends, the trailer's in a lot better
I
shape.
guess I how's the trailer look?
It's a lot better.
So trailer one, captain steers.
The trailer one, and it's a testament to don't get in a rush to try to do things. I got in a hurry to go try to help my wife with something, and she was just having some problems, and the ramp came back and hit me. So, yeah, but didn't have to go to the emergency room or anything, so it was all good.
Just made you mad.
It just, yeah, it definitely got me good.
Hurts the old ego there a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Luckily, no one was around when it happened.
Oh, good.
To help the wife bleed, I bet that went over.
Well, yeah, yeah. I had to get my story straight before I got over there to explain it to her. Give it a little time. I don't have a lot today. I hope I was gonna have Sergeant TD come, but I understand he came and introduced himself with the chief last Thursday. So I hope you got the chance to get to know him a little bit. Very excited to have him up there. He's gonna do a tremendous job. Pat has a long history of community involvement and in this area, and I think he's gonna be a great asset up there and do great things. The other things I wanted to mention is April is actually Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So we are going to be doing a lot of stuff with some of our community partners, releasing throughout the month, just kind of information and trying to show support for victims and survivors throughout the month, and anything that we can do to support that. Related to that, on May 1st to the 4th, we're hosting some pretty significant training that we're proud of that goes into internet crimes and sex trafficking specifically, and exploring the dark web. So we're going to have area law enforcement coming in for those 3 days, and we've got instructors coming from around the country to present this training. We're very fortunate to have the opportunity to get that type of training coming to Manhattan. It's going to be at Manhattan Fire headquarters, so we appreciate them allowing us to use their facilities to host that training. So pretty looking forward to that training coming. I think it's gonna be very beneficial. The only other thing I wanted to mention was in February and March, we had a pretty significant surge in vehicle break-ins, vehicle burglaries. I think February had 40 of them in Riley County, and I noted or saw that 38 out of those 40 are actually vehicles that weren't locked. So we're just going to take this opportunity to, it's one of those things that can be very opportunistic type of crime sometimes. And the biggest thing you can do is keep valuables out of sight, lock your cars. We had several vehicles that actually had firearms inside of them. So we highly encourage folks to not leave their firearms in their vehicles and stuff. That's obviously concerning to us, but please put stuff away and lock your cars. And the other thing is continue to call us. Sometimes there's a tendency, especially if not much is taken or nothing is taken, to maybe not call us or hesitate to do that. We still try to pride ourselves very much on being an intelligence-led agency, and so it's helpful for us to see those areas where break-ins are occurring. So even if nothing particularly is taken, or when minor items are taken, we ask the public, please contact us, and we'll go ahead and file that report, and it helps us to see patterns and things like that. So that's pretty much all I got.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good week.
Take care.
Stay clear of trailers.
I will.
Yeah.
You're up.
Okay. Okay, we have a proclamation today for the National County Government Month, April 2023. And Vivian Legba here. So I'll read this. Whereas the nation's 3,069 counties serving more than 330 million Americans provide essential services to create healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. And whereas counties fulfill a vast range of responsibilities and deliver services that touch nearly every aspect of our residents' lives. And whereas Riley County and all counties take pride in our responsibility to protect and enhance the health, well-being, and safety of our residents in efficient and cost-effective ways. And whereas, under the leadership of the National Association of Counties President Denise Winfrey, NACO is highlighting how counties rise, demonstrating exemplary resiliency, inclusion, solvency, and empowerment. And whereas each year since 1991, the National Association of Counties has encouraged counties across the country to evaluate awareness, county responsibilities, programs, and services. And whereas the 582 Riley County employees provide services to residents of Riley County, ranging from emergency services, including protection from wildfires, to planning and development, treasury, and district court. Employees and elected officials perform these duties in a manner that demonstrates a commitment to strong ethics, integrity, and fiscal responsibility and equality. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Board of County Commission, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as National County Government Month and encourage all county officials, employees, schools, and residents to participate in county government celebration activities.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Foki. This is the second time we've had this proclamation. As far as I know, the second time we participated in the nationwide celebration and awareness campaign. So, or perhaps third time. And so I'll be following up with some educational information on social media and communicating with the press and trying to let people know that participating in local government is kind of the best way to have an impact. One of the best ways to have an impact on your community. So thank you very much, Commissioners. And may I take a picture of the three of you? Sure.
Yeah, I could be on the center of this.
Yeah.
Okay, together just a little bit more. And one, two,
Yeah, this is how we cooperate.
Yeah.
Step one.
Just perfect for county government day, huh?
Yeah, how are we gonna celebrate? We're gonna have a big party or what?
Well, I don't know. That's a thought.
Cake's always a good idea.
Yeah.
Come over to my office.
Now we have the next one, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
One more proclamation?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, this is the proclamation for the Child Abuse Prevention Month 2023. Whereas our children are our most valuable resource and will shape the future of Riley County. And whereas childhood trauma, including abuse and neglect, is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that build strong children in families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community in partnership to build awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas prevention means the best defense for our children and families. Therefore, we, the Board of Riley County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as a Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Thank you.
So we did already have our Wear Blue Day, so we did that on Friday, the health department. We wore blue, and then, so I will be, we'll be promoting things through Facebook this week or this whole month about child abuse prevention. We'll put out our signs and our pinwheels, so. Thank you so much. Can we also get a picture? We get an everything.
Sure.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank
All right.
you.
Can I keep it or you? Okay, thank you.
Do you want to keep?
For County Day, we need to get those desserts shipped from Walmart's, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. We should go do that. It's a good celebration.
Oh, they had a.
Did you go to the?
No, I couldn't.
I couldn't.
I can't.
I hadn't had dinner yet.
I can't be around that much pie. It's just not, it's not a good thing.
I was working in the yard and I said, this is a good reason.
Next commissioner, we have Craig Cox at 9:45.
No. It's my wife and I had a small house after.
Oh, did you?
Had desserts there.
Oh, they had dessert. She said the grill was open.
Yeah.
I had to go.
And they got one that's brownie, oh, no, because they put so many guys. And then they also have a chocolate chip cookie bake, it's a, this big, just, they cookie, and they throw some ice cream on it. It's, yeah, that's good stuff.
I'll do a cookie any day over at 7. They have-
Sunday, we had cinnamon rolls, my grandson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
At Nico's, they have a cookie bake and you can get a full or a half, and the full is like this big.
Oh,
It's like-
it's there, I'm always so full. I really eat.
Yeah. We had it for my friend Steve's birthday, so we had. We got a full one. I didn't realize it was big enough for like.
Oh.
All this ice cream, candy on top. But the half would be plenty.
Yeah, I think I was never short on quantities.
No. They do, but they do, you can get a quarter.
Yeah, they got a
half,
quarter, yeah.
yeah.
We used to go to. Sit there. It's no. Now.
Oh, perfect, yeah.
There.
I think that was one of the wages started.
What's Amanda doing?
No, how are you?
I'm good. Drove down last week after work one day and sold my dad's garden for him. He bunged up his knee and it turns 80 in a couple weeks. Bunged up his knee, so couldn't, he's got one of those huge, what's the name, man? Toro, the big old
Toro.
pony built, the huge one, the big one. That thing will drag you, you know.
That's the reason why you went out there.
The son and I went down there. Well, my son actually ran it most of it, so that was good.
Oh, yeah, those
got that.
Even smaller ones, those,
Got that.
because I rented one time.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think a monster and it just
It beat me.
tilts it up so fine.
Oh, yeah.
too. Gee,
It does a good job. You gotta hang on.
you gotta know what you're doing with that, I guess, for sure. It'll eat your lunch. Get his onions in.
Yeah.
He'd come down the week before and saw how he was hobbling along, so better because he's on him, he'll get out there and hurt himself worse, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He goes nonstop still.
That's the name. I get red onions. Those don't, they don't store very well. I've got another batch. Yellows.
I just hope they make it to my 80s.
He ordered some okra seed and they come in like a pound bag. He didn't realize what he ordered, I don't think, so he gave us a bunch of okra seed. We both now have enough okra seed for 10 years.
Yeah.
What do you put it in the fridge or?
Okra seed keeps really, it's a really hard shell seed, so it keeps
Okay.
well for multiple years, so where some seeds don't. Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Sure.
Craig Cox, Deputy County Counselor. I just wanted to talk to you this morning. This is a discussion only, I guess I should say. And I know I have talked to maybe all of you about this one time or another since the March 23rd City County meeting. Just cutting to the chase, I will say that I was very surprised that afternoon when city animal control staff made the statement that they had quit enforcing the county animal control resolution, a couple years ago. And I was unaware of that. And the significance of that is, as I put in my car, was that obviously the current animal control resolution was the one dated back in 1988. The proposed one that we've been looking at reviewing was crafted between September 2008 and November 2009. And I mentioned the committee we had that represented the animal shelter, RCPD, the city. The city had the city attorney was there, plus some staff. We had farmers, we had ranchers, we had the health department, RCPD, county staff, and the basis of the proposed policy that we've been looking at was on the assumption that the city would enforce it, out in the county like it had been done in the past on the 1988 resolution. So with them dropping enforcement the last couple of years, it makes any policy we adopt unenforceable. And so I just thought that was quite a impact on what we were trying to do here, and I just thought it was important to come down and have that discussion with you. I think it probably isn't a bad thing to have an updated policy that would at least deal with current issues, which the 1988 policy doesn't. And so I guess it would be my recommendation, even though at this point in time, it would not be enforceable in the county, that we at least keep working through it to develop a current policy that deals, like I say, that deals with the current issues and concerns. And I guess see how the animal shelter issue works itself out with the city at a later date. I never fathomed that issue was had any impact on our policy until, like I said, they announced that they're no longer enforcing it. So I just wanted to get input from the commission whether or not we keep reviewing this policy and get something developed, or how you want to proceed at this point forward.
Yeah, I was surprised on that too. And we've been paying $60,000 for nothing, basically. So that probably ain't gonna happen this year. The second part, I'm under the interpretation that somehow, some way, they're gonna punt it to RCPD, at least the operations and the admin side. So I don't know how that changes in perplexity, the policy that we're crafting, if we have to go back through and review it and connect it with RCPD at that point in time. I'm just not really for sure.
Well, and a couple things, and I'll let Rich correct me because he's been here longer than I have. I know that. I go back to 2006, and I sat in on any number of yearly presentations by the city saying that we need money from the county to support the animal shelter, and I guess it was always my understanding, Rich, you correct me if I'm wrong, I always thought it was my understanding, the county was saying that money that we were giving towards the animal shelter, the effect of that was we got enforcement out in the county on animal control policy, and so yeah, well, That's correct. What have we been paying for the last few years?
Mhm.
Well, and yeah, if they, and we've discussed this, if they do kick it to the RCPD, we're in charge of facilities. And that facility is in Pot County, which I don't think Raleigh County residents should pay for. So where are we at that point?
Well, and, well, yeah.
No, go ahead,
No,
Chris.
no, I can hold my thought.
Well, I mean, Craig's exactly right. I mean, really what brought it to light was Commissioner McKinley, asking the question, well, how many have you got? We haven't seen a report. We always used to get a report and they would report how many in Riley County, how many in Pot County, and they even, because the commissioners have always pressed, and it's kind of ironic how Pot County got more services, at least by number counts, but their appropriation amount was less. And so that was always kind of a thorn in our side. But yeah, but then for them to drop it, and I'm not sure who I talked to on the animal control issue, maybe it's Commissioner Ford, if they attempt to take it to RCPD. I think that's Craig and Clancy work. I'm not sure the statutory authority would allow for it, for one, because I mean, consolidated law enforcement is consolidated law enforcement, not consolidated animal control. And so I don't know that that's going to be at least, I wouldn't make it as easy as they want to try and make it on them. I don't think that they can. And they have to remember, we are solely responsible for all facilities for RCPD. And I don't foresee Riley County being responsible for the facility in a different
Yeah.
county.
And so I'm gonna ask for an opinion on that.
That's a discussion that Clancy and I have had in the office, so maybe you've talked to Clancy about that, Rich.
And
But
maybe it
but
was.
I mean, that was and I personally have not read the consolidated statutes for some time. But we're gonna go back and take a look at those statutes because just like Rich said, it was consolidation of law enforcement. And I would be shocked if we saw any kind of animal control language in that statute.
Right.
And a standard statutory interpretation rule is that if the legislature had intended something to be in the statute, they would have put it in.
Right.
And if it's not in, then they had no intent to put it in. And so if animal control is not in that consolidated statute, the legislature had no intent for that consolidated structure to involve animal control. So I mean that's we'll give that opinion to you, Commissioner Ford. We've already been looking at that, at least discussing that.
Maybe we should ask for our money back for all these years they haven't been enforcing it, then we could maybe provide some enforcement in the county.
Hang back for a second, let me talk to you. Okay.
But in regards to if just hypothetically, if RCPD took over animal control, at least the way the city has it imagined, and I stress the word imagined, the animal control officers would be out there. And so, I mean, they would be separate officers from law enforcement officers, because they don't need the same training that law enforcement officers need to do animal control. So
And RCPD has kind of gone through that and kind of has come up with an estimate of what that would be, and to do it right, which they would want to do. It would take about 7 officers at approximately $350,000 in salary, and that's not other operational costs. It's not some other things configured in. That's just people.
Yeah, and I say, and that begs the question as whether that can even be done in a consolidated statute.
And even if it was, is that the right thing to do at this point in time when you're down officers out on the street and you're down officers in the corrections?
So the Commissioner Folke, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
No, right now.
Right. I was gonna say, I think you're talking about basically is revising our animal control, and I think we do need to do it, but until we find out, I don't think we need, I know it's been on the back burner for 10 years, but I think it needs to stay there until we find out for sure what's gonna happen, because there's no point in writing something if it's gonna, in the next year or two, they're gonna change the way the whole thing works, so it doesn't.
I do think how we've structured it in terms of using it more as in behavior for rural animals instead of different types of breeds. That's okay. I think how it's set up is okay on our end. I just don't know how that, I know how that policy is going to facilitate administratively and operationally with everything in the air.
So we're gonna just put the review of the policy on hold. I mean, we reviewed quite a bit of it, you know, and have talked about the more the behavioral model for bad dogs as opposed to the breed model. So, okay, that's just a consensus, the direction I wanted as to where that is. And so I think there's some fine tuning from our discussion I'll do. And so we'll get that done and have a good policy in place. And then we can wait to see if and when that can be implemented.
Yeah, I think the policy from what we reviewed, it sounded like a good deal, but until we find out what the enforcement's available,
Right.
it's kind of fun.
Right. Well, and even though the 1988 policy is extremely out of date, I mean, it's not being enforced now.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, we're just, it really is pretty much in limbo until we get we get the animal control portion of it figured out.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted some consensus as to direction on the actual policy, and so I had made some edits, we'll clean that up, we'll put it in where we can find it, and we'll just see where the animal control component plays itself out. If that's agreeable.
It should be coming up soon. The law board's the one who decides that or what?
No, I don't think
That's the
so.
authority.
I don't think, that's what I'm trying to figure. I don't
Yeah.
think we do.
Yeah. I mean,
Whether you're for it or
We're gonna-
against it, I
And
don't.
I don't think the city can just say the law ordinance either,
Mhm.
even if they have the majority vote on the law.
And I've heard several times in this conversation early in the year that, they'll just turn the facility over to RCPD too, but RCPD doesn't do the facilities. They use them, they operate in them, but they're not responsible for them.
Mhm.
And I absolutely 100% refuse to be responsible for a facility that's not in Riley County.
Okay. So we'll say, I'll make the few edits we've talked about at this point in time, and we'll put it in storage, so to speak, and hopefully we can get back to it, once the animal control component works itself out. But yeah, Clancy and I will look at the consolidated law enforcement statutes, because that really is an issue, whether that mechanism can really be used for animal control. And my one last parting shot, so to speak, is that I am just disappointed that the county had to find out about the lack of enforcement after so many years after the fact, and we were never notified about it at the time that it occurred. I'm disappointed at that and find that very interesting.
Well, I think it's even worse is how for 2 years they come and ask for appropriations knowing they weren't doing it. Which I think is even worse.
That's the disappointing part of it. I mean,
We got a lot of needs. $60,000 would go a long ways in a different arena. I don't know how much of a problem animal control really is out in the county to begin with, or the other smaller communities, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because historically, I said before, the whole time here, we're going to have one bad bite case, maybe it was a dangerous dog. Historically, the issues are dogs running at large out in the county in those rural subdivisions, little girls playing in the front yard and a strange dog come running through and barks at her, and then it runs off, and parent gets mad because nobody knows where the dog came from or where it went, so historically, the dog at large has been the real issue out in the county. Yeah.
That's an issue in the city too, so I mean, it's not like
Sure,
just a
sure.
county issue.
Like you mentioned, your meeting in the park that one day.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. This is Russ, just a few seconds.
Something like that. Yeah, that's what I knew. It was less than a minute. We were already at 9:59. I was Russell.
Okay, it's actually less than 30 because it's right now. Okay, Russell.
You gonna let it rain, Russell?
If I could dance.
If I could dance, I would try.
Couple of times.
I'm trying to help you, Russell. I washed the truck and you can put wax and stuff on it, and I'm trying to do my part. I really am. Okay.
Yeah, 20 for, I think the last I saw was 20% isn't very promising.
No. Especially as we get into the afternoon. Didn't look like there's much of a chance for rain at all in the 15-day forecast. Let's get up in the 70s and 80s.
80 yesterday, 80s today, 80s tomorrow.
Russell Stuckey, Emergency Management, Rural Fire, Morning Commissioners, have my staff time report. Obviously, we talked about several things Thursday night in Riley at the county commission there Thursday evening. Some of the hot, things we've been doing is obviously working on the public safety headquarters, and that takes up time. I did go to Salina, take a command and general staff training for the knowledge, but mostly for the continuing education credits to maintain my certification. But it was interesting. It was a good class. The other things that we've been taking up a little bit of time is working with counsel for the lawsuit, with the assault and lawsuit, providing information to counsel, and just giving him the big picture from our point of view. Then as we talked about Thursday night, the fire station bids and figuring out what to do with that. As I said, Thursday, we have an advisory board meeting a week from tomorrow. And so we'll bounce the 2 or 3 ideas I have off of them and get their recommendation and come back to the commission with that recommendation. Participated with HR and color code personality assessment with all our office staff. And so that was interesting and should help facilitate even better office relationships, which are all good at this time, but should hopefully make them better. Obviously, we're getting into a busy time of year with burn permits and controlled burns, out of control burns, and so far so good. We haven't had too many real big nasty ones. The biggest one I don't know about the biggest, but the nastiest one so far was what, 2 weeks ago Monday, I think, when we called in air support from the Kansas Forest Service, from the one that started in the median on 177. That's probably been for lack of a better term, scariest one so far. But then of course always have with the fleet of 40-some trucks that get run hard. It's lost one transmission so far, so that's not too bad for this time of year. Hopefully it's repaired today and we can go get it and have it back for tomorrow. If not, we'll make do. Applied for a couple of grants. We applied for a SAFER grant, which is, it's called Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, but it's specifically a recruitment and retention grant for funds to help with recruitment and retention. Applied for another grant from the Volunteer Fire Assistance Program through the Kansas Forest Service. That one is for equipment to fight wildland fires. I think that's a grant that we typically get every year for $5,000. The SAFER grant, if we would be successful in it, it could be a substantial amount of money, like in the tens of thousands, but we'll see. That's a pretty competitive grant. So you can see our
hires and retires and staffing numbers there on the last page. And then the run report for the month of March. We had 44 total calls. No surprise that the majority of those were grass fires, with the second one being emergency medical, then a variety of others. With Ogden as usual being the station with the most individual calls. I think that's all I really have for today. Unless the commission has any questions. So we just talk Thursdays.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Next commissioner, you have Amanda Webb and 15.
Those people living in the woods.
To USBC.
There's on the floor over here is where you might need to plug in the stuff.
On the floor.
Yeah, I don't know what he's trying to plug in,
We're
but
trying to plug in a laptop so he can have his presentation on the screen,
So here's a.
if that's possible.
this thing, I know people trying to plug in something there. I don't. I'm not gonna touch it because I don't blow it up.
Yeah. Okay, so.
You might call up to Derek and ask him.
Yeah, I guess.
You just need that adapter, it's also an DG to USB-C. Or. I gotta tell you about that. That's like. We got a lot of security issues, everything that make on Microsoft.
I don't think so. I want you to verify yourself.
Have a good one.
Right.
What's the game tonight, Greg?
No, I might
Nothing else on.
watch, because we've been at church this Sunday, then Florida Atlantic game.
I didn't get to,
That was insane how they got me that shot. But no,
Yeah,
well, it was bad before Atlantic got, well, I guess you got a block. It looked like they were doing. It had been going back and forth, so it was like the last 5 minutes of the game. And then I watched the first half of the Utah game, and they were having away with it. Something else.
yeah, they did.
I've been stuff I didn't read ahead of time. Everybody understands that fun. The way they're playing like that.
Yeah, that's what my son was saying. I don't pay close enough attention to other teams.
I don't either, but I like this red and stuff.
Mhm.
Got the articles. It's like they're playing, I mean, they only finished third or fourth in their conference. But at the end of the year, they were.
Yeah, beginning of the year, middle of the year, don't matter if you put it all together and play your best ball at the end of the season. You know,
They kept saying, you know, Big 12 kept saying we're the best conference, but. It's the Big East with Marquette, UConn. Who's the other one other?
Maybe we make an exception.
Yeah, they're top ones will be the top one. After that, there was 3 or 4, and nobody else. Yeah, the Big 12 thing was it was top to bottom.
I think they say the difference is.
But
This particular.
but also kind of read that since 1999, UConn has more national championships than Kentucky, KU, North Carolina.
That's why I was rooting against those guys, so.
Yep.
That's why,
Duke's been in the Final Four all the time, but they haven't won it.
Yeah.
that's why I was rooting against those teams, that's why I'll be rooting for San Diego State tonight.
Oh, yeah, because UConn beat them the first time in '98, that's right, okay.
Yeah, we, like I said, it was 98, the first time they.
That was '99.
UConn.
That was a hell of a game, I remember watching that.
Oh, yeah.
They've won, over there's one now.
I know
With 3 different coaches,
Okay. When is it?
because they had.
Jim Calhoun,
And then they had,
You know?
you guys
Is,
followed him, they got, then there was some kind of a violation, they kicked him out. And this new guy came in, I think he's got him back up too.
I'm not sure sports wise, you're gonna keep track of. I watch baseball from kind of a distance, you know, like.
you'll be really watching it from a distance this year. I was the 100 lost team, easy. What's up, my opinion, if you're gonna lose 95, 100 games, just play all your young people, just bring them up, play, throw them in and at least prepare for the future, but they don't even do that.
Effort on Friday, with Emily's pre-knowledge and consultation. I just hate to lose this week. Sure. Yeah. So maybe shoot for Friday or, and I can see them.
Seconds.
Yes.
Right, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Amanda Webb, Planning Director. Josh Brewer is here. He's the Executive Director of the Manhattan Area Habitat for Humanity, for those of you who might not have met him. He and I have had some recent discussions on housing and grant programs and all of that, so we thought it's probably a good idea for him to share some information, kind of what Habitat's up to, and then he's going to talk about the housing analysis that the city did, and just kind of lay some background, if you will. And it's really timely because, of course, we're starting on our comprehensive plan update, so we're going to have a lot more discussions about housing. So we kind of want to get, your thoughts and input kind of with that topic as we go along. So this is just kind of to give you some background so we can kind of start going down that path. So with that, I will turn it over to Josh.
Good morning, as Amanda said, my name is Josh Brewer. I'm the Executive Director at the Manhattan Area Habitat for Humanity. We are a community housing developer that serves both Potawatomi and Riley counties. Big picture of what we do is we build strength and stability in the community by making interventions in the housing sector. We are like other housing developers, but we are somewhat of a hodgepodge of activities, and largely because of that community nature of our work. Habitat for Humanity, have all of you heard of Habitat for Humanity before? Most people have. The mission of the organization is to build homes, community, and hope. And so I think about a lot of the work that we do is falling in one of those three mission areas. And when people see us, they either don't know that we're a housing developer, because we don't use that language very often, or they see us as a housing developer and they want to know how are you different than a for-profit developer other than that profit. Big picture is that we're community driven. We look for grassroots solutions, and then we share those solutions across our Habitat network. So we get ideas from other Habitat affiliates that work in their communities. We bring them to this community and see if that's something of interest. Most of us practice something called asset-based community development. This is a little different from traditional development patterns where you would say, okay, there's a problem, and how do we design a solution to that problem? Asset-based community development, it's been around since the 70s. It really says, let's look at what's going right in a community setting. And then let's try to figure out what is keeping us from fully realizing that asset. When we think about housing activities, the existing predominant model is largely from the perspective of residents. They say things happen to me. The rent went up, the housing is falling apart, and I don't have a lot of say in it, or something is done for me. I get a housing choice voucher, for example. Not that either one of those things is, I might say the first one is maybe not what we'd like to see in the world. But we are shifting more towards an empowerment model where we try to engage citizens more in solving their own problems. And so we're kind of moving it down there from saying, if something's going to happen, it needs to happen with us at the table. And even more challenging for us is when we say people need to be able to solve their own problems. And so this is kind of where you see the pictures of people building their own houses on Habitat build sites or doing sweat equity in various ways. And largely that's all about building that community sense of ownership. Our activities, this is our Habitat International strategic plan. They tell us that we need to be thinking about our work in one of two houses. We're either making community impact, the things you see us for, building things, making loans, or sector level impact. How do we create partnerships? And then the biggest house is the social impact, which is kind of what we're doing here today. How do we share information that hopefully leads to some action? There's a lot of people talk about housing. It's something that has become, I think it's exciting to hear that a lot of people are interested in housing. And it's hard to square all those different conversations. We're hearing a lot of different housing experiences. And so we need to paint some kind of common pictures that we all understand around housing. So there's three models that I want to bring here today. The first is one from county health rankings. This is a model that shows the connection between health outcomes and county policies and programming. And really centers kind of these leverage type factors. The second one is the housing market analysis, which we had completed. It was an outcome of the 2020 strategic plan. At the city of Manhattan, we identified that we had not had a housing analysis in 20 years. And so we needed to update that. And so from that strategic plan, we formed a workforce housing steering committee. Myself, Sheck Hamlin was on that steering committee as well. And then the third is Habitat's model that looks at community outcomes and says, hey, for your average citizen, I don't really differentiate between having decent housing or feeling safe when I walk outside my housing. I just know, am I having a good life in this community or am I not having a good life? And so this is kind of what Habitat calls the quality of life frame. This is the third one. To start back with this county health ranking, in Riley County, and you have this report in your board packet, Riley County has 5 significant drivers of health outcomes: injury deaths, access to college, adult obesity, adult smoking, and severe housing problems. And these are the things that impact our outcome the most. And we're really lucky here that 4 of our 5 drivers are positively influencing our ranking in counties. The 5th is severe housing problems. That is the only one of our significant levers, if you will, that is negatively impacting our health outcomes. You see an incidence there at the county of 20%, 20% or 13% of the state of percentage of households with at least 1 of 4 housing conditions. And based on the results of our housing market analysis, I think this is probably an undercount. Overcrowding, high housing cost, lack of kitchen facilities, or lack of plumbing facilities. We know this is, if this is not, I would put on the 5th one of these, they should be tracking is significant health and safety deterioration of housing. That's something we struggle with here, but even with these 4 housing problems, and we know high housing cost is probably higher than this, we're still seeing that this is the thing that seems to be pulling our county health ranking down the most. Now, this is not something that's surprising in Habitat's frameworks either. What they found when they do data across the country, they find that if people have access to stable, affordable housing that is free of physical hazards in a neighborhood where people have access to healthy living opportunities, they will have improved health outcomes and they will have decreased health costs. Now, what they also see, when they look across the data, is that race remains a significant determinant of how people have those health outcomes. So the way you might experience that here is if we have 2 individuals that live in houses that lack mobility access. If you have an older person in a predominantly white neighborhood that is white, and you have an older person in a predominantly black neighborhood who is black, you're going to see a difference in expectations of health outcomes. And that's something that we're seeing. And that's not all that surprising because race remains so sticky with housing. And so Habitat really wants to identify that if you're thinking about making interventions in your local housing market, you have to think about race and what are the racial demographics of those neighborhoods, because some neighborhoods are going to be harder to move than others. So some of the data from that too is that moving a low-income household into a more affordable and therefore more stable housing lowers emergency department visits by 18% and increases primary care visits by 20%, which is more efficient. You want to see people not using the emergency room as their primary healthcare facility. And it is logical that if people have more stable housing costs, they're going to be able to put money away and stabilize so that they're not using those services in a way they're not designed for. And big picture, that's gonna decrease our drain on our Medicaid expenditures if we can do that. I think one of the bigger impacts is really with children. If we can get kids out of households that have severe asthma triggers, pest infestation, mold seems to be a really sticky one that we see a lot, especially in the city of Manhattan. I know this is a real problem for students and soldiers. When we meet that up with case management, we can see some really significant cost reductions, $3,800 on average across the national data for 3-year medical costs for children. And so seeing, understanding that we can stabilize, that's going to help us be more cost effective with our healthcare usage, and then we can avoid seeing kids getting sick from living in unhealthy housing conditions. Probably one of the things that we see the most that's actionable for us. This is a wheelchair ramp we built on Friday. Aging in place. We do a lot of wheelchair ramps, and older adults. There's a lot of older adults in this community who struggle to access their homes safely. They use EMS when they need to leave the home. Obviously, in the case of a house fire, they're not going to get out of that house. I can't tell you the number of people that have told me that they have not left their home unassisted in more than a year. They're stuck in their homes because they don't have rent. And so what we see on the data is that increasing that home safety there reduces rate of falling by 19%, lowering individuals who fell by 12%. If you fall, that can be really significant. That can be a life-altering event. And that hospitalization alone can cost up to $30,000. So a ramp like this, if we can get in, we can build a ramp for $1,200, $2,500, even $5,000 ramps. That makes financial sense to do all day long if you can afford a fund. Next piece is this housing market analysis. And it's my understanding y'all have not been briefed on the housing market analysis yet, correct? Okay. You have the entire report in your board pack. I'm not going to go through that entire report for you. I would say from the steering committee side, when you're working with consultants, you want to get as much as you can. I don't think we got everything that we wanted from this report, but we have more data now than we did before. And the 3 big things that this housing market analysis set out from the start that they told us they were going to do is they were going to study the key trends that were impacting our housing here. They were going to quantify the demand for future housing because we had no clue how much housing do we need here. No one was able to tell us that. And then finally, let's identify some strategies that'll help us get there. This is some data that we started to see. You see that jump that everyone experienced during the pandemic. And I'm looking here at average sales prices in a couple ways. The first is you see that huge jump in 2020 where your mean sales price and this is the Manhattan market, mind you, jumped really significantly from about 275 to 329. That sales price has continued to climb, not as dramatically. And then separately, you see down there with the existing homes, there is a bump, but nowhere as significant as the increase in the cost of the new construction. And so I think what that shows us is one is that there's significant demand on new construction, but also there's something about the existing inventory that is dragging on that inflation. And so you don't really know what it is from here, but you can see the effect of that drag. And it's pretty remarkable that the existing inventory was not getting purchased. It was not experiencing the same type of inflation. Meanwhile, you can look back to 2008. After the housing recession, you see inventory available listings really drop. And that is because builders stopped putting as much supply into the market. People got burned in 2008 and they said, we're not gonna do that again. And so we pulled way back on our new construction. You can see that in the permitting data. And so that trend, that deficit in production and in supply, coupled with the demand, has led to really record levels of low inventory availability. And so that is starting to recover. But it's still in no way returning to the more healthy market that you saw prior to the 2008 recession. And so what that means for people that are trying to relocate here is they're not finding homes, and when they do find homes, it's kind of like you take what you can get, and then you have to fix it up, which can be really, really expensive. From the housing data, a big question was, how do we look? Like, what does our community look like in terms of affordability? And we have these 3 different ways of looking at our community. We can look big picture, Manhattan Junction City MSA. You can look at City of Manhattan. And then I know we have some unique age demographics here with K-State. So we can break out those traditional students and look at City of Manhattan 25 plus. And so what you can see is that within the Manhattan Junction MSA, you have a smaller extreme low income and very low income, a little bit higher low income than City of Manhattan. And you have a higher high income. So, and they're calling high income 120% of area median income to 200% of area median income. I think you could ask some people who are at 120 how that feels. I don't think they would say they feel like high income earners. But that's what we're looking at here. And we're pulling down price points, maximum affordable home price and maximum affordable rent. And so they're at that 120, we're talking about $245,000 home sale price and a $1,890 rent. Now, if you go back to this, we're seeing $329 is your average sales price, right? So you're talking about, you need to be probably in the 175 to being able to access your average sales price. I think what's also interesting is when we look at the City of Manhattan here and break out our university population, we still have 14% extreme low income. We still have 12% very low income, and we have 18% low income. So when we break out that traditional student population, we actually see our low income level increase. And I think one of the narratives we had said before this data was those low income numbers are students. And what this is showing is that, yes, some of them are, especially people that are just working a small part-time job. But we have a significant demand here in our low income population that based on our sales price, we're not able to meet. Going out a little further, how do we compare to our peer and regional neighbors? And the 2 ways we wanted to look at this was growth in the 25 to 35-year-old population. And then second, that the mean sales price. And so City of Manhattan, if we look at our regional neighbors, Topeka, Salina, Leavenworth Junction, they are significantly more affordable housing markets than we are. And we are more comparable to markets like Fayetteville, Arkansas. Now, Fayetteville obviously has a much more dynamic economy, a much higher household median income. And so we are significantly more expensive than you would expect, both geographically, but also in terms of relationship to our primary employer base. Now, we are also seeing growth in that young marketplace. We see people who are really interested in buying a home, but they're running into these high housing prices. Now, you might say, are those people moving to our market, or are we pulling people from our neighbors? Junction City's -8, Topeka's -7. So they're losing that 25 to 35-year-old population in this data. And we're growing at 12% of that population, similar to Lawrence and Iowa City. But you see on the right side there, someone like Fayetteville, Stillwater, they're increasing 27 and 32%. And most people would argue that that is because people are able to find a home that matches their expected income. And so that relationship between expected income and expected cost of housing is called a spatial mismatch. The higher that mismatch, the more detrimental it is to economic development. And so what this is showing is that we're having demand from that young population, but if we keep hanging up there in the high housing cost, you might expect that demand to decrease. When we started asking people, so we surveyed the community and asked them, what's your experience been like with housing? And the survey results we got back were from a more affluent than average population. It wasn't exactly representative of the community, but it gave us our first insights into what people are experiencing. So even skewing a little bit higher income than would be representative, we are seeing renters in green and owner buyers in blue. Everyone is struggling to find a housing at an affordable price point, affordable to wages. There's some surprises on the property tax side, and we would really see that now with increases on the owner side. Utility costs on the renter side were significantly higher than people had expected. And you still see a little bit of discrimination in the housing on the renter side that seems to be persistent. On the physical conditions of the housing, people are encountering significant physical repair needs. Renters we hear that a lot, especially when we talk with college students. They're finding really significant repair needs. And then people are maybe not finding the things that they want. It's a different type of house than they're looking for. But because of that low inventory, they're really needing to just take what they can get. When you dig into those repair needs a little bit more, you're seeing some foundation issues, very expensive repair need on the homeowner side. A little worrisome that you see that on the rental side. Exterior stairways, decks, porches. Almost 60% of renters are indicating that that's a safety issue. Got roofing issues. We got a lot of leaky roofs. And doors and windows remain pretty significant. I know in the rental side, you're seeing that, and that's kind of leading to some of those high utility costs. When we switch to the interior side, leaky, drafty windows and doors, the renters are indicating that again, mold and water damage. We're seeing that really high in the rentals, but also in the owner side. And then you've got your mechanical, plumbing, electrical hazards, lack of egress, smoke alarms. I know back when there was a rental inspection program, City of Manhattan smoke alarms were the #1 flagged item, and the electrical issues that would cause a fire were #2. And so we're still seeing that data, or we're still seeing those conditions persist. Now, when we pull back and say, okay, that's great, we know supply is the problem. What do we need to do? What do we need to do building wise? This is what they used a few different models to produce this, and this does account for Scorpion coming in. They said this in 20 years is what you need to produce by price point for your different income categories. And when we first saw these numbers, I find this pretty intimidating. And I know when I talk to people at the Builders Association and other groups, they say there's just no way that we're going to be putting these numbers into production. And these numbers come with an assumption that we're going to lower our vacancy rate from 12% to 8% and renovate, I believe, 800 units. So those assumptions are already, those two assumptions are really high. So even with that big old asterisk, this is the demand summary that they're putting in there. So they're saying when we want to look at our workforce category, Your dark green there is your student oriented rentals, your light green is rentals. Even up into the workforce, that's 60% to 120%. They're saying that we need to put into production 510 units. And those units on the ownership side need to have a purchase price between $120,000 and $250,000 to be affordable. And every builder we talk to about this kind of says, so Habitat's got it under 300, right? I'm like, no, unless we were gonna start writing some really big checks and find a bunch of workers. Because that is just a really significant supply, but this at least gets us something that we can say in 20 years, if we want to meet the demand, this is what we need to do. And I could certainly see that being adjusted. Now, if you are a construction company and you see this demand summary, it says, okay, we need 300 units above 400,000. I'll be over here building 2 of these a year, or or 1 if it's a really big one. And then that will meet demand. That's going to be a guaranteed market for me. I know I can make those sales. And so that's continuing to leave that workforce category. And then with the city, what they indicated as priorities, we put 4 goals out there, and we identified a number of strategies that could be useful in addressing those needs. I see 12 here. So if we could actually get 50% of these done, that would give us 6 strategies accomplished, and I think that would be really significant. Now, I do know there is a discussion at the city right now about bringing in another consultant to tell us how to do this. I'm curious to learn more about that. But we do, both Donna and I do sit on the Workforce Housing Steering Committee that will guide the usage of the 10% sales tax. That'll be $600,000 a year. It's gonna be a drop in the bucket, but we're hoping that could demonstrate some viability in one of these categories. Any questions on the Workforce Housing Steering Committee before I move on from that? Okay. Habitat's model, as we mentioned, it's not to bring in consultants. It's to facilitate discussions with community members. We center individual neighbors, gift streams, and concerns. And we believe that those residents' sense of community, their sense of social cohesion, the collective action that they can take together, that's what produces these sector level outcomes of amenities, economic opportunities, education, health, housing, safety, and transportation. So a little bit different model. And when we break that out, we know that home ownership is really central to seeing that model be effective. When we see people who are stable long-term, we see higher social engagement. We see higher civic engagement. People serve on committees, people serve on the planning board, go to the meetings. And ultimately, I don't know if that makes y'all's life easier or harder. But it makes people feel like they have ownership of their community, because they do have ownership. And so when we can build those opportunities for home ownership, that really lifts that entire community sense. So what we did in the summer of 21 is we organized a series of front porch chats. We did this from Wamego all the way over to Ogden. We just popped up in someone's front yard and we asked people what was going right in their neighborhood, what they were concerned about, and what their dreams were, what they really thought their neighborhood could be. And so sometimes we got some really easy things, like over in south of City Park. They said, we've got a lot of older residents that we really love to see. We don't have an opportunity to see them enough, and they really struggle with their leaves every year, it's kind of getting harder for them. So we had a leaf party. Really small, easy thing to execute on. But that was really that community's dream, was to be able to do that. Over in Wamego, they said, it was so nice just to get together on our porches. What if we did a progressive? We've got these really great old houses and they have all got these porches and we don't get to know our neighbors about it. So what if we just have, and we weren't involved with that, but they had a progressive on points and people had drinks and little, snacks and things. Really easy things to execute. When we look at this from kind of an organizational level, we realize that we have a lot of we have an unfair advantage in this area with these institutions. We've got Fort Riley here, we've got K-State here, we've got MATC here. We said, how do we bring them to the table in a different way? And in 2020, we started working with those groups and we simply said, how do we design, if we know that these are the numbers and the current houses we're putting in the market are not meeting those numbers, how do we design a better house? And that's a tall challenge. But this is what they came up with. They said, we need to design a house that is affordable, but is not cheap, that is durable, that is easy to assemble. It doesn't require a master carpenter to assemble because there's not going to be the master carpenters for every one of these houses. So it's got to be something that is it's not going to be error proof, but it's going to be easier to do right than to do wrong. And it's got to be something that produces as much electricity or could produce as much electricity as it uses. It needs to be thinking about how it's oriented to the sunlight. It needs to be thinking about opening its windows and not running the HVAC. These are not new ideas. I live in an older house, a couple blocks from here, and this is how our house works. Because it wasn't designed for a mechanical system. So we're kind of looking back and we're saying, okay, what are old things that we can bring into the next generation housing, and what are new technologies that we can bring? We assembled this house with structural insulated panels. So these panels are built in a shop. They're 8-foot panels, so they're divisible by a 4x8 sheet of plywood. We reduce the waste. And these are soldiers from Fort Riley that have indicated they're kind of curious about working construction once they transition. And so we said, why don't you learn about whether this is the right field for you in an environment that you're going to be successful in. And for construction companies, what about a technology that someone could walk off Fort Riley and walk onto your job site and potentially be successful? This guy that's hanging off the ladder back here, that guy needs to be successful when he walks on a job site. And with the panels, he was having a blast. For a little bit more skilled work, such as setting cabinets, MATC, they've got a year-long construction technology program that is really top-notch. They're really one of our primary learning groups on the job sites. And so here they are working with custom woods, learning how to set custom cabinets. This is obviously it's not the most efficient way to do it. You get a lot of bodies around, but this is a great environment that shows, how do you adapt to real world conditions and work with a high quality product that's manufactured locally. We also work with the Flint Hills Renewable Energy and Efficiency Cooperative. This is a group that buys solar panels in bulk and passes those savings along to community members that are interested in putting solar panels on their own homes. And so our homes we've got a sun raising today on that job site. So Freak will be out there and we're going to be raising panels, and a group from Fort Riley is going to be the electrical side of that. Home Builders Institute is going to learn how do you install solar panels? How do you wire solar panels to the house? We're going to do it on our house. Then we kind of went out from there. It's not just new construction. We got the Fort Riley soldiers interested in home repair. We've got, especially with veteran home repair, we've got a lot of needs. This is a home right across from the house that we built over in Ogden. Had a wall that was failing, like that structure was gonna be non-viable and become a safety issue, so. With a large enough group of people, we were able to get out there and address that need before it became. As I mentioned before, we do a lot of wheelchair ramps. It's a great way to teach carpentry and address the need that's there in the community. We especially like to work with Fort Riley when we're working with veterans. It's a really cool experience to have everyone out there on the site together. So rare photo of our construction manager, Cody, who makes himself very scarce when the camera comes around. But we're starting to see more community members pitch in. So this is Rich Crest over in Wamego. He said, I'm a contractor, can't do a ton of wheelchair ramps, but let me know when you're out in the county. I think as we get further from Manhattan, further from our student bases, we're going to need to recruit more folks like this that can just hop on a build and work with other community volunteers and pass that knowledge along from a highly trained contractor to just regular community members. This association, General Contractors at K-State. Now, this is a group that's largely going to be learning how to work on planning job sites, but they're getting out there and learning how to run a real job site with wheelchair ramps. MATC doing the same thing with the wheelchair ramps. As I said, this is really one of our most common interventions. So we mentioned, I think a lot of people think about, and I certainly thought about when I took this job, thought, okay, we need to build houses. I need to learn how to build houses better. I need to think in terms of construction. Then I got there and I learned we have mortgages. I asked who deals with the mortgages, and they said, you do. I was like, okay, I need to learn a lot very quickly. We are very bad at talking about our financial services because construction is fun. It makes for good photos. You don't want to be in the news for your mortgage servicing. So we don't talk about it so much. But Habitat for Humanity has, from the very beginning, originated and serviced mortgages on the homes that we build. Now, we are expanding potentially some partnerships with the USDA, especially when we're building outside of city Manhattan. But our in-house mortgage product is a 0% interest mortgage product. So it's the best on the market. And because we do so much financial literacy training and so much financial counseling, we have not had to foreclose on any of our mortgages that we've originated, and we have a 100% on time rate currently because we set people up for success. Now, if we're looking at those numbers that we showed in the demand summary, we're not going to be able to build a house for $120,000. Right now, I can build a house for $153,500 of labor and materials, and that beats the market significantly. But you're seeing a gap there. So these mortgage services, being able to stack different products, that's going to be really important for us being able to meet the need going forward. People think a lot about who's working with you. They think, okay, is someone making $13,000 a year? No, they've got to make it through underwriting. So family of four, $68,100. So this is entry level. This is teachers. This is fire. This is police. This is the critical workforce that we're going to need. And so our current project, what we're working on is we're building hopefully a 3-house pocket neighborhood across from Ogden Elementary. These houses are going to be accessible to teachers. So our strategy is really, how do we build homes adjacent to employment centers and then really recruit in those employment centers. And the last piece that everyone seems to love, the restore. Yeah, everybody loves the restore. And I would say, besides the mortgage surprise, the restore is probably I thought originally kind of the oddest part of the Habitat operation, because what construction company is a bank? No one. No bank becomes a construction company, but neither one of those two entities would want to operate a home improvement store in addition to everything else. But the reason why the restore makes sense and I serve on our solid waste commission. Waste is expensive. And I've learned a lot about how expensive that is to move it through the transfer station. So everything that we can divert through the restore, that's dollars saved, that's property tax dollars. So last year we diverted 11,000 items that would have been going to the transfer station. That's construction materials, that's appliances, that's furniture. And all of those items are sold at significant discounts. So it lowers the cost of furnishing them. In addition to the waste reduction. So at the county level, how do you all play into this? I think as Amanda said, you've got some comprehensive planning coming up. I would love to see housing be more a part of that comprehensive plan. To get as much of that data from the city as you can, and then see how you can put county data on top of that, how we make that data better. And then there's also more money available right now than we're probably gonna see for a generation. We need to make sure we land as much of this money in Riley County as we can. There is currently a program at the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation called Modern Income Housing. That's an up to $3.5 million grant. A city or a county can be the applicant of record. We've got some good projects, a couple good project ideas. I'd like to see, if we could get a city in the county, a small city to apply, and if we could get the county to apply, and that gives us a better shot of landing some of these dollars here. And then, of course, I think still making these projects pencil even with $3.5 million is tough. But another tool that the state has, that the county would have to weigh in on, is a rural housing investment district, RHID. That's going to be a tool that we're going to have to start bringing to the table that will require city, county, if it's in the city, it will require the city. It will require county and school authorization. So anyone with tax authority is going to have to buy off on those. And then finally, a concept that I don't want to go into too much detail on is a community land trust. And that's something that we've been studying for a couple of years. Donna's been having conversations with it for about 5 years. It's a viable solution in Douglas County. It's viable in other communities. So we're going to see if this makes sense here. And if it does, that model will require city, if it's in the city, it will require city, county, and school district approval. So those could be some opportunities coming down the line where the county could weigh in. And then I think the last thing is when we have a project, we got John on the Commissioner Ford on the shovel on the last groundbreaking. We want to see you all out at the groundbreakings. We want to give you that re-election photo op that you want, so that you can kind of stamp that you that you support housing initiatives.
Of course, you didn't tell them how good I was with the shovel.
It's-
The ground was a little hard that day. It was still frozen.
That's why we did that for the video. It's just, it looked good. And then this is my contact information. I'm happy to meet and talk about anything housing related at any time. I certainly don't have all the answers, but there's smarter people out there than me that I can call and try to get some more information. That any questions?
On the mortgage, you just do the mortgages for houses you build.
Yes. Yeah, we just do those. USDA we'll do purchase option. We've only done the construction option. I know some other habitats that have larger repair and renovation operations will purchase homes, repair and renovate them, and then sell them. And then they'll run the mortgage there. And then there's more and more banks that are actually interested in this market. And so some other habitats have actually moved to just providing the construction services. So I think it would be hard for me it'd be hard to imagine a scenario where someone else would have built the house and we would just do the mortgage. just because it wouldn't have been pencil for them.
You know, you said you had 153,000. How big a, what size of house is that?
That's a 1,200 square foot.
1,200,
house.
so,
Yeah, so we're
yeah,
hitting
slab, yeah.
slab on grade. We do a shallow form frost-free foundation. Our construction types, so like as you see here, this is kind of what it looks like when we're putting the panels up. This is more typical in commercial construction environments. This is probably the most like construction competent commission that we could have here. But these more commercial construction techniques are, we found that they've increased efficiencies, reduced waste, and we get a house weathered in about 2 days. So people really like that.
Now you just have to find a way to mass produce those.
Yeah, and this is kind of where being part of this habitat network is great, is there are other affiliates in higher housing cost markets that they're going full prefab. Some go full prefabrication, so they build the whole house in a shop, kind of like Workcraft does, and they ship it to the site in 2 pieces and put it together. Some affiliates are sticking with panels, because that makes sense for them, but they're bigger panels. So like the entire side of a house would just be one panel. And then they have a specialized truck that comes out that has a lift on it that'll just set it in place. I know Grand Forks, Colorado is building a very, very large facility to do that, to do a large panelization process. I know we've heard from other developers too, that they heard our price point and they were like, can we buy those panels? I think there could be a world where, because builders want to be able to do these sort of houses. They can't do it with sticks. That's what they're telling us, and I believe them on that.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for this time for Amanda.
Righty. Good morning again, commissioners. Amanda Webb, planning director. Here to present you with a contract for temporary soil evaluation services. So this is just part of the transition attempts plan, if you will, to continue offering as many of the environmental health services as we can. Obviously, the important ones that keep people's systems repaired, keep people in their homes, or able to move into their homes, all of that. Soils is a big one, and that's of course one we're not able to do ourselves with the staff that I currently have. So I'm working to contract with Dr. Deanne Presley. She is a K-State instructor. She's got a soils class every semester, but certainly this spring semester. So they're always looking for, of course, real world experience, if you will. And I've got plenty. So she has graciously agreed to perform these services temporarily, of course, with her class. So I'm working to get in touch with her to get it signed on her side. I apologize. I wish I had a signature from her first. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to make that contact with her. So I will try again today so I can get that finalized, because I've already got her scheduled for soil evaluations later this week. So so again, it's a very basic contract. Again, it's just for soil evaluation services. That's all that she can and is able to offer us. But again, it's a huge part of what we do. So any questions, comments, thoughts?
Glad you're able to find something.
Yeah,
Yes,
I figured the university would probably be your best option at this point.
Yeah. for sure.
Okay. Will I make a motion to authorize the chairwoman to sign the contract for temporary soil evaluation services and contract comes.
And I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded to authorize the chairwoman to sign the contract for temporary soil evaluation services. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Sure, please sign.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amanda. Have a good week.
You too.
That concludes our business for today, or is there anything else we need to talk about?
I've got a couple. Okay. One's just a clarification. Of course, a couple of Thursday meetings, not the last one, but I think the one before we were discussing fairgrounds. Needed to mention that the drawings that were there, the Seco Park renderings, were a conceptual drawing. They were not authorized by anybody, paid for by anybody. Something that Anderson Knight did just for conversation, I guess, which it did. And you know, just kind of maybe look at how you could reconfigure the park area and what it might look like to those that, you know, have a vested interest and so on and so forth. But I wanted to make that clarification. Nobody paid for those. He's got staff and a design software that does those sort of things, and that was all done in the house just for conversation purposes. So honestly, they weren't meant to be public. They were just meant for I guess our eyes only at this particular point in time, but overall spurring the conversation is the worst thing in the world. So just wanted to clarify that. I guess the second one, I don't know, Clancy, these legislative conferences, I'm starting to struggle with them.
Okay.
I know we've got it scheduled on Monday. I'm not saying we do anything this time around, but to me, they're not having any really advantageous effect. Unless I'm missing something. I just, on the back end of things, I just, you know, from where we started in 19, we're discussing the same items over and over, and feels like one by one, they're just all disappearing. We're not getting any validity out of it. I don't know if we need to look at something in the future differently. I mean, I don't know.
Look, I'm open to that. I mean, I'm
Okay.
not locked in on a particular form of doing this. I think it's important to, if it does nothing else, at least it keeps a relationship built between this board and the delegation that I think a lot of counties don't have. And yeah, I would say you can't really point to a lot of tremendous success recently. There have been some statutory changes that came out of not necessarily the legislative conference that the board supported as a result of staying in contact, and past members of the delegation have relayed that they do like the fact that this board does actually forge a kind of relationship with it. But I can't argue with you about, I couldn't point to something that's been a dramatic success recently. But I think that's more the tenor of the legislature. I would say the tenor of the legislature itself, and just the fact there aren't enough votes to support counties statewide in a lot of these things. They just don't seem to be. I don't know. I'm open to anything.
No, the thought that I came up with, and you know, it's just something that could be discussed at the end of the month at KCCA, but you know, we probably need our state association to work maybe a little bit more closely with, I want to say, legislative leadership in particular, and maybe do something like this with them.
Could be. I'm in favor of anything that works.
Yeah.
So
I just feel like, you know, we're talking about the same things over and over again at each one of these, and just doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere. We're not even getting any, negotiation, compromise, anything. It's just, I think I'm as discouraged as I am frustrated with it, to be honest with you. And that's no fault of anybody's here. I just,
No, I understand. I'm not personally invested in having these.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
I just wonder, are we,
But, and I know. Like I say, the legislature doesn't seem to care what the county is in general, but I think, but I thought you said that some of the particular, Mike, it's because of those things, he's asked more questions on some things. Didn't you say that he has?
Well, he's sent quite a few things in for comment and review, more so probably than even can be dealt with really easily, but that's okay. I mean, seriously.
But he's asking for.
He really wants to know,
backup. Yeah,
he really wants to know what the
what's this really
county's
mean?
position is on something.
Yeah.
And I will say that in defense of the, and again, not just to defend it, but it occurs to me, we've had good feedback from the delegation members, both particularly from, not just from those who've been on for a while, Mike's experienced and just the volume of things have generated more requests from him, I think. But Senator Reddy has been good about getting back and asking for staff input on things, on legislative items. And has Representative Titus, and I'm not singling, I'm just saying those
Right.
stick in my mind. You can't say they're the only ones that have asked for things of staff or wanted to know what the county's position is. And to me, that's useful. Whether or not it's worth having the legislative conference over or not, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I think, like I
I'm
say,
concerned if we don't do that, then they don't.
They don't, right, say it. The results haven't been promising, but at least our local people are trying to learn more, which hopefully they can relay that to some of the other folks.
And again, it's a matter of whether you want to do it that way, or if you want to change the format of it. I'm open to doing it any way you want to. The one thing that we did different from some counties, particularly Shawnee County, used to have one where basically the delegation would be up on this raised dais and department heads and others would come in, elected officials would come in and make their pitch, trying to convince the delegation to do something. We flipped that. And we said, this is what the county would like you to do. And not that we can't order them around. I'm just trying to do that, but say, these are the county's priorities. Not, do you think this ought to be the county's priorities? That alone might be worth something, but I don't know. I understand your frustration.
It's more a discouragement because I don't feel like we're really putting any teeth in any of this. We keep saying the same thing over and over again, and feels like one by one, we just keep losing. And I want solvency. That's what I want. And however we need to do that, that's fine with me, but it just feels like sometimes we're just spinning our tires, and I don't know if a different approach is needed. I don't know if we need to really heavy hand the state association and maybe our individual department associations a little bit more. I don't know, but
Yeah, like I said, I'm open to any changes you want to make or any additions or whatever. I just would hate to throw it away out of being discouraged because, and I'm not saying you're doing that, but there is some value in it. I can't say there's been a lot of results on the legislative side, but for that, we just need numbers. And we haven't had that. We haven't had enough people that seem to understand or care or some combination about what it takes to operate local government. And that's even from people who've been in local government recently. So I don't know. I hear you. But I'm all in favor of having one less thing to do. So mark me down for a positive.
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's good for us to have a relation.
Yeah.
But the state, but like you'd said, the state group needs to. Because they'll say, oh, yeah, that one county, Riley County always complains about something. And, it needs to be a more united effort across the state. Except there are some out there that don't seem to care much.
I think, that's where maybe we use this model and we work with KAC and we develop something in November and April to deal with just the legislative leadership. And that's both, that's majority and minority.
I mean, like I said, if I can run that past Jay. I mean, if you haven't already, and
I haven't,
and see if he and Bruce are open to doing something like that.
and I could definitely talk to them, like I said, at the end of the month in Hayes you know,
Yeah. Maybe that's the best way to raise it. approach it.
I just, you're right, we don't have numbers and, I mean, we have more numbers now, which. There's pros and cons, I guess, to that,
Well,
but
and I meant in the legislature generally.
no, I know, but you know, here in terms of who we can. Specifically reach out to, it's not a significant number to really change anything, even if everybody,
No,
you know, was on the same plane on every specific item.
you're absolutely
you know?
right. I mean, and that's why we've talked about, they have a role in this too. They've got to build those relationships to bring in those numbers with other delegations, that kind of thing. So, and I, you know, other than encouraging them to do so, I don't know. I don't have any immediate answer to that, but maybe that comes from Casey's more direct involvement with leadership on behalf of the counties. I don't know.
And maybe if you get the league involved in it at the same time too, so you get the
Sure.
municipalities. Because you know, those are all overlapping issues typically. Particularly
A lot of
down
times
to
they are.
local end, so. Um,
Maybe at the end of the session, when all this stuff kind of settles in, and maybe we need them to turn it on them, have them tell us how we're gonna run, how can we run the county with these kinds of things? You know, we've eliminated this, eliminated that. Now, this is what you can do to make it, maybe we ought to turn it around a little bit. We're always telling them, this is what we want, this is what we want, you know. At the end of the session, I'd like to know what we're going to do to run the county.
Well, that can be part of the discussion. Like I said, any structure that makes sense to the board is fine with me.
no, I think you have to get to the meat and potatoes of it. And that the meat and potatoes, legislatively speaking, is working with leadership, whether you like them, whether you don't like them, whether it's ideological, not ideological, you've got to make that connection, and somehow we're not getting there. I have no issues with, you know, any one of our particular legislators. It's just, it is the power of numbers, and we're not gaining on that side of it. In the midst of time, I think we're losing big, or fixing to lose big. That's just my thought. My two cents.
KAC is supposed to be dealing with the leadership for us.
Well, they do, but you know, you also have to take into consideration, not every single one of the 105 counties is on board with every single issue at every single time. So you really have to kind of narrow down what our vision or strategy is for those things. I mean, typically everything that we talk about in the legislative sense is, you know, does have an impact directly to all 105 counties, but you know, not everybody feels the same. So we have to feel that one out to figure out, you know, what those priorities and those objectives are. But you know, just having this conference, or you know, 2 or 3 counties even having a conference, really doesn't invoke, you know, the numbers and the direction that I think we really need to get a more viable legislative answer and validity and solution moving forward.
We'll point to a potential victory on the horizon, maybe, is that Senate Bill 162.
Yes.
And that involved having that help to have another county come in and say something about it. But that's also where a lot of times we're kind of at the mercy of how many counties want to get actively involved, because just like the mortgage registration fee stuff, almost no county keeps track of the losses. And we can show real losses of millions of dollars from a relatively seemingly innocuous change.
And
to a
nobody's
piece of
really
legislation.
doing, and I understand that some of the very smaller counties, you know, Sherman County or Wallace County or something, probably does not have the staff, honestly, to do that. But
Sure.
But you can certainly, I think you can certainly find those numbers, and maybe somebody else, including the state association, could potentially, you know, assist a little bit with that and just breaking the data down and
Sure.
so on and so forth, just so we know. But
And I think and I will say, part of you being discouraged about it, I would submit to you, is probably because this board is very active in following legislation. And there are boards that are not.
you know,
There are probably more that are not than there are who follow it. I mean, really. And just kind of wait. I mean, I ran into that when we were first talking about mortgage registration fees, and we had some meetings with some of the groups of registers of deeds, and some registers of deeds said they weren't going to keep track of it. A couple of them said they weren't going to do it because they didn't think their board would care, or that there was some kind of antagonistic relationship with one or more of the board members,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
And I understand that happens.
So, I mean, the state has the great great advantage here tactically on these things, because unless we've got numbers of people that are going to support the county's position, what we've got are professional associations, which again, they listen to on one level.
Mhm.
But unless we've got numbers that are going to determine the outcome, I don't know. I mean, and for that, we just need to, I don't know what the magic formula is. We need to get more counties actively involved, not just sending their dues to KAC, but they need to be sending in testimony. They need to be showing up to testify.
I think that's why you invest in a national association, so you have that centric approach there.
But
And
you
you're
still have
getting
to,
something
but they
back,
have to
you know.
come and do it.
Right, I know.
You know, and that's I think from what I've seen, KAC's worked pretty hard to try and get that to happen.
They have.
So maybe the answer is to, okay, they're doing what they can, they'll keep doing it. And maybe the answer is we approach them, okay, well, here's what we want to do. And we would like to work with you on approaching leadership and see if we can get some counties aligned with that. That has some appeal. Just on first time. It's supposed to make some sense. Because definitely leadership really controls the outcome.
Yeah, and I guarantee you some of the larger lobbying institutions do the exact same thing. That's why you have all those dinners and all those meetings and events in January and early February.
Unfortunately, that's the key difference. They have a lot more money.
I know.
That they can lawfully spend. And I'm not cheerleading for a different role for county.
No.
I'm just saying that's just a difference that we just live with. And it works if you've got, it can work if you've got a legislature, in my view, that's willing to actually consider the reality of operating cities and counties. Wouldn't have to agree on everything.
It'd be better to have that engagement, at least so everybody at least knows where they stand, because I think as of right now, it just doesn't happen at that side of it, at that top level. And that's where, that's where you gotta start.
Honestly, to me, that sounds like a good conversation worth having. Okay, and I know previous boards have been frustrated with the lack of activism by the County Commissioners Association on some things in the past. Now, whether that's.
I think at least the last 2 years I've gone, I think the conversation's been good, and I just don't, I think the frustration on a lot of these same issues are there. We break out into, breakout groups, determining by county, large county, middle counties, small counties, et cetera. And it's pretty well attended. I mean, given the dynamics of everything, I just don't think it was a real, what are we doing all this for? What's that strategy? And then, going forth with it.
Better to have a plan.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And then everybody just floundering around on their own.
Okay, anything else?
I was just curious who each one of you took to your In Focus segment. Did Anna go with you?
Yeah, I took Anna one time and.
Or was that?
Yeah, I had Anna, but was it last month?
Yeah.
Yeah, she went with me.
Who went with you? I'm trying to figure that out for this month, and I didn't want to.
I can't remember who I did. 2 months ago.
I know. I almost forgot that I took Vivian with me in January, so.
Fires and tornado season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Russell, yeah.
it wasn't Russell. I've got a couple of different options. I just want to make sure I didn't.
Oh, no, I took Amanda last time.
Okay.
So probably would be good with the proclamations day.
Got several of those coming this month, I think, don't we? We have a lot of proclamations in April.
Well, I just mean
Oh.
the topic.
Yeah. I was thinking something maybe legislatively too, but I think we already depressed enough people and don't have to go. Come on. I'm tired.
We could try and cheer you up.
I figured it's springtime, everything's coming back to life. Let's think about something positive about
You're saying your platform is The Walking Dead?
something.
Okay, that, well, do we have a motion to adjourn before we get too depressed?
Yeah, let's hurry up.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. We adjourn the April 3rd meeting of the Riley County Commission.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the April 3rd meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone have a good week.